Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Microsoft Flight Simulator. In today's episode we are back in the Cessna Citation Longitude. Many people have reported to me an issue with the aircraft and having inabilities to fly or complete flights with it. And so today we're going to test out that theory using my overkills tutorial guide, and we're going to see if she's truly broken or if maybe I can help solve some problems. Let's find out. If you are interested in acquiring any of my overkills tutorial guides for Microsoft Flight Simulator, please consider joining me on Patreon. Patreon subscribers level tier 2 and above have access to all of my guides, as well as any future updates and future guides that will be coming down the road. Link to Patreon can be found in the description below. Okay, so as I said, we're going to be using my overkills tutorial guide. This is a full flight from Logan International Airport in Boston over to Minneapolis in Minnesota. This guide has everything that we need, everything from the flight plan to the weights and balances, you name it, it's in there. So if you guys are interested in acquiring a tutorial PDF guide of the Cessna Citation Longitude, please consider joining me on Patreon. It certainly helps out the channel and then also creates the opportunity for more content as time goes on. Now, let's go ahead and jump right into it. I don't want to waste any time lollygagging at this point, because if there are issues with this aircraft, we're going to have to work them out as we go along. I have not flown it. I have not done any pre-rehearsal. Today, we're just flying it the same way you would if you decided that you wanted to fly the Longitude. All right, we don't need weather. We need weights and balances. And again, I am pulling all this information from the tutorial guide. So let's see here. Fuel or payload today is 2.6 and payload is 77.3. Again, taking all of this from the PDF guide. By the way, if you guys do not see your CG here, it's because the window is not expanded. So if you're ever wondering why you can't see that, just take your mouse, put it to the edge, and pull it. And then you'll get this, okay? I've seen a couple people asking about how to get that window expanded. That's how you do it. Okay, so we have our fuel set, we have our payload set, we're done with weights and balances. Let's go into the cockpit check. So taking a first look around the cockpit, we want to make sure the parking brake is set, throttles are at idle, flaps are retracted, and spoilers are retracted. We are also going to, if I can get the right camera view, come up top here for a second and make sure all lights are turned off and electrical power shows off as well. Coming down here to the electrical panel, everything is off and secured, so now we are good to move on to the next step. So we're going to come over here and take our standby power and put it into the on position. Now normally you would do test then on. I am going to skip a couple of steps here and there just to accelerate things for you guys. Come over here to the APU start switch in the back, go to on, then start, and monitor APU progress from right here. We do also have the working titles G3000 installed, which also works with the G5000 that's found here in the Longitude. So again, monitoring APU for 100%. Cleared the master caution if you guys didn't see that. There's 100% APU Gen to the forward position. With the APU Gen in the forward position, we're now going to step upstairs once again. Anti-collision lights on. And let's see what the recog lights we also want on. As far as wing lights, tail floodlights, etc., those lights you guys can come on. They're primarily used for night operations, so we're actually getting ready for an early morning flight, so it's just going to get brighter and brighter for us. We have clear skies ahead today, and no expectation of running into any weather today. It's supposed to be a nice, beautiful day from here all the way into Minneapolis. Okay, so we've done our fuel quantity check. You guys saw us. We did that. Autopilot checked that the it is disengaged. Autopilot is completely disengaged. All systems are off. We also want to make sure we set our altimeter. The altimeter today is 2993. So coming over here to the baro switch, rotate that forward. There it goes. I don't know why that took so long to respond. Interesting behavior. Okay, cool. All right, that worked there. We're good there. Groovy. Let's keep on moving down. Next section here. All right, so we have checked on our winds. We checked our lights already. Yep. I'm on flight. Oh, I do need to step upstairs one more time. And we need to make sure that we take our emergency lights and set them to arm as well. All right, moving to the next page. Stepping on down, we need our transponder next. And we are going to be transmitting a code today of 5172. We're going to press enter and go back into that. So we actually need to change the transponder mode that we're currently in. And that's up here. And for right now, we just want it turned on. We'll set it to TA once we get ready for takeoff, or traffic avoidance. Or advisory, I think is what it is. I always get that one mixed up, not going to lie. Okay, so we have all of our systems set. The altimeter is set. We have our transponder set. Now we can start taking a look at entering in our flight plan. Now, I am going to zip through this a little bit just to save a bit of time, but keep in mind, once again, all of this information is very, very detailed in the PDF guide if you guys are interested in learning how to fly the Longitude. Okay, we are starting at Boston. And we are going to be arriving at Minnesota. All right, and now let's start taking a look at some of our procedures. So we're going to go over to the proc menu, and we're going to take a look at our departure. Departing runway today, we're going to be looking at 15 right. And departure method, or our SID, I should say, is going to be the Highland 5. And no transition today. Yep, that's correct. All right, and we're going to hit load. Now let's go back to the previous page, and we're going to go to our arrivals. And we're using the Muscle 3. There we go. And our transition looks like it's going to be idiom. Yep. And arrival runway, we're expecting 30 left. There we go. And load that as well. And again, there's a bit more detail that's included in the guide. So if you guys are wondering if all that information is there and how I got to these decisions, it is in fact there. All right, so now we need to go to the approach. And again, we're doing 30 left. And I believe hasty, yep, is our transition onto the ILS 30 left approach. Now we want to hit load, but we obviously don't want to activate that yet. So at that point, we're done here. And let's see if we have any en route waypoints. We do indeed. So next we are going to enter. So we have our SID, we have our star, we have our approach. Now we need to enter all those waypoints that come in between those, between the SID and star. So here's Highland. This is the point that we leave the SID. And so this is where we're going to start adding our en route point. Sorry, I didn't mean to click there. I wanted to click here. There we go. All right, and our first location is we are going direct to Hannah. Okay. And we're going to hit enter here. Then we're going to find Hannah. We're going to hit load airway. Select our airway, the Quebec 816. We're going to fly the Quebec 816 until we reach Kelty. And load the airway in. Let's scroll down and see what we're doing from Kelty here. From Kelty, we're going to be jumping on another airway. We're going to be jumping on the Quebec 812. And we are going to be exiting at Zohan. That was such a weird movie. Let's see here. And then from Zohan, we are going direct to idiom, which idiom we should already have in there. And there it is right there. So we are good. That's all we needed. So next step here is I just want to double check that our waypoints are good and that our flight plan looks good. So we just left click on our map feature or our map rotator there. Rotary. Gosh, I can't talk today, guys. You guys have to bear with us. Unfortunately, we're dealing with the mighty COVID here at home. So it was unfortunately brought to the house. All right, so let's just go. We're going to make sure. Probably don't need to be at 10 miles. Let's expand that out a little bit. There we go. That makes way more sense. All right, so just like anything else, we're looking for any discontinuities, any breaks in the flight plan, any points where the flight plan gets really weird. You know, if there's like right here, we want to zoom in a bit more. No, that all looks good. Good, so it's just going to be a nice smooth. Like here, we could probably fly direct to one of these locations here. And we might do that towards the end, but for the most part, we'll probably just fly our route in. But all that looks absolutely fantastic, so we can just give that another left click. Takes us back to the primary menu. Let's step on downstairs once again. And continuing on with our guide, I want to make sure I don't miss anything here. We got that, we got that, we got that. Okay, good. Next thing is we need to set our trim setting. So to set the trim setting, we used to be able to come right here. This is our trim switches. We used to be able to come right here and mouse over it. And if you had your tooltips on it, it would tell you what the trim setting was. Well, for whatever reason, in their infinite wisdom, Asobo decided to remove that. Apparently, that's not an important piece of information. So what we want to do is, I know I'm bitter about it. I'm sorry, I am. So what we do is come out, use the end key on your keyboard, and as long as you get the HUD view, you can see your trim setting here. You can see currently we're at 0%. Now, based on our current flight, current weight, everything that we have distributed according to the guide, we're going to be looking at a nose down trim of 4.5 degrees. So what I typically do here is it's 2 taps on my trim switch to get to a full number. So for example, there's 5. So I'm going to go nose up once, and that should be approximately 4.5 degrees. Okay, and then from here I come back to the cockpit. All right, so we have our trim set, and let's see what else we got. We also want to make sure our center of gravity is set. That's why I wanted to show that earlier. Center of gravity today should be 3079. So we almost had it. That's close enough. I can leave it at that. All right. And again, all the information how I got these numbers is in the guide. Okay, so now let's take a look at our speed bugs. So coming back down here, we're going to go back to the home menu, go to speed bugs, and let's take a look at some of our speeds and see what we got going on here today. So, according to our speeds, let's see here, select each of the V speeds, edit, press enter. Press the enter. Okay, yep. All right. So we are going to be looking at V speeds of 121 knots, 122 knots, 131 knots, and 185 knots for FTO. FTO's final takeoff speed. A lot of people don't understand what that one means. It's a little bit different from the V1, V2. Final takeoff basically means get your wheels off the ground. You're at your maximum roll speed, so you need to take off. Okay? So just don't confuse that with some of the other like V1, V2, things like that. FTO means that you are going way too fast. You no longer belong on the damn ground. Okay? All right, so let's move on here. Next, we're going to move over to the pilot side of things here. We're going to step right down here. And this is our Pilot TSC, touchscreen controller, and it controls the pilot side PFD. So what we want to do here is we want to make sure we change the CDI source, which is this guy right here, our nav source. You can see it's changing this now VOR2. We want this on FMS. We want to make sure it's ready for our flight. Traffic map, we can turn that on if you choose. It brings up the traffic mini map there. I like keeping my touchscreen controller or my PFD relatively clean. Now what I do want Oh, that was enabled. Huh, looks weird. All right, I wanted my synthetic. I like the synthetic terrain. Looks nice. Just looked different right there for some reason. But I guess that's fine. I guess it's normal. Speed bugs, let's go ahead and turn them on. Doesn't help if I don't have them on, does it? Alrighty. And finally, I think we already set them. I got my recog, I got my anti-collision. We are good to go there. Alright. Now, let's set our initial altitude. Come on. We're going to make an initial climb out here to 12,000 feet. Oh, moved my mouse. Okay, there's 12,000. And we can turn our flight directors on. We've already made sure that our CDI is set according to our flight plan. And we are ready to start moving forward here. How did our batteries get turned off? In case I missed that, guys, that should have been right after standby batteries. I don't even know how that would have happened. But in case I did, I'm willing, which is odd because I'm sitting here following my checklist, but apparently I skipped that. That's what happens when we skim read, I guess. But when we first start the aircraft, it should be standby battery, then left and right batteries, then everything else I did. So forgive me if I missed that. Okay. And we will set our initial speed as we get ready to take off at the runway, and I'll show you guys what that looks like here in a little bit here. So we want to make sure at this point here, parking brakes are still set, wheel chocks have been removed, spoilers are retracted, throttles are at idle, flaps are retracted, anti-collision lights are on, and fuel valves are open. Now, for the fuel valves, this was actually a recent development. Fuel valves are right here. I want to make sure you give that guy a tap. That will allow fuel to pass through into the engines and allow us to, start them. All right. Which is where we are at now. We are now ready to start our engines on our beautiful Cessna Citation Longitude. So let's get started with that process. All right, so let's let the games begin. We're going to step on back down to the rear panel again. We're going to open our engine run. We're going to set it to run on the right engine. And then hit the starter. From there, we'll be monitoring the engine controls for idle performance. And I will show you guys what that looks like in just a moment. Alright, so there's the right engine at idle. Let's move on down. Do the same for the left engine. Alright, we now have both engines at idle. Step on down here. We're going to come back over to our electrical panel now. Left gen, we're going to come down to reset, then to on. Right gen, down to reset, then to on. Switch on down over to the back here and turn the APU off. The bus tie should go to blue. You want all blues. It's a good indicator that you are all set and ready to go. Your anti-ice, we're going to go ahead and set them on now. Pretty cold this time of year. We already have our trim settings set. We're just doing a last sweep through the cockpit. CDI is set. Initial altitude is set. Barometric pressure set. Transponder is set. Flight plan is complete. V-speeds are set. I think, my friends, we are ready to depart. Can't think of anything that we're missing at this time. Go us. Looking good, looking good. Only thing we need still is our emergency locator transmitter switch here. ELT. There we go. Down is what we're looking for. For arm. All right. Back up to our lights. Taxi lights on. Pulse lights remain off until takeoff. and we are ready for taxi. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and start up my Navigraph for a moment. Now it's got built-in charts in the aircraft here as a part of the working title G3000. But honestly, I just prefer using the desktop application when it comes to Navigraph charts. It's faster, it's more responsive, it's easier to, get your reading on. And 1.5 right is going to be right out in front of us. Makes it nice and easy. So, without any further delay, parking brake gets released. Quick sweep of the area. There's our runway right there. Can't beat that, huh? Brake check. Brakes are good. Setting flaps 1 for takeoff. Pulse lights come on. I guess technically that's the entranceway to our runway, but you guys got the gist. Now, normally you'd have a co-pilot helping you guys do a lot of this stuff. So I will typically always, right before, for simulation, I'll hold short the runway here. Oop, there we go. So we're just right about here. And this is where I'll come up, hit my landing lights. We need to come down to our transponder. And we're going to set that to TA only. Transponder set, landing lights are on, flaps are on. We're going to go to our speed bug now. I'm using my HOTAS controls for this, but monitor the speed bug, and we're going to set our initial takeoff speed. We're looking for 122 knots, I believe is what we decided. Yeah, that's 123, that's fine. And sorry, disregard. We're going to be setting that to the FTO of 185 knots. That's what we want to set this to. Now, this is where many of the issues that I've seen are being reported. So how you want to do this is you want to first engage toga, then speed up the engines up to your, and actually give me a second here. Let's align our heading with the runway. There we go. Lock in our altitude. I knew it was going to do that. Darn it. I didn't mean to hit that. I forgot we'd already done it. Set the back up to 12,000. There we go. All right, autopilot remains off. We do, however, want to be in nav mode. Okay, so as I was saying, you want to make sure that you hit toga first and then the auto throttle. So there's toga. You can see speed set. Now we're going to throttle up to 50%. And actually, it looks like they fixed it because auto throttle engaged automatically. So we're good. I have not done anything else. All I did was hit my toga button. Come on, pretty lady. Up we go. Alright, now we want to try to follow our flight directors. Gear coming up, positive rate. Although I'm not seeing my flight directors. Autopilot comes on. That was very dramatic. There they are. Now, the reason why we dip down like this is because we're only set to 185 knots. Almost immediately after takeoff, what we want to do is we want to take our speed here. I know it's kind of hard to see with all the reflection here. You want to take your speed and you want to get that up to 250 knots. Okay, so we're going to select our speed bug. And we're going to get her cranking. Don't worry about the don't sink. We're going to come right back up. I don't know why it's waiting to climb here. It's continuing to descend. So this might be what you guys are talking about. Let's go for flight level change. There she goes. Man, it really wanted to wait, didn't it? So, that part was my fault. Put the autopilot on, but I didn't tell it how to climb. Okay, so I didn't tell it flight level change or vertical speed, so it didn't know what to do. So, that was my fault. And had I just read my damn guide, that wouldn't have been an issue. You also want to make sure, I got to talking about the speed, because that was one of the issues that people were having with the aircraft. You also want to make sure at V2 plus 20 knots, so at about 140 knots, 160 knots, we want to make sure that flaps are up. Alright. But other than that, nothing too crazy. A little bit of weirdness, but as you guys saw, I wasn't worried about it. Now we shouldn't be at 267 knots yet, that's for darn sure. We're going too fast. We're below 10,000 feet. We shouldn't be that fast yet. Alright, now what I am going to do is set that altitude. We're going to go all the way up. We are going to 42,000 feet, I think it was today. And again, every part of that takeoff is drawn out step by step, much nicer than what I just did there. I haven't flown the Longitude, gosh, been a really long time. I'd have to go back and look and see when my last video on the Longitude was. I'll bet it's been 5 or 6 months at this point. Been a long time. Which sucks too, because honestly, I really started to enjoy this aircraft right about the time that I stopped flying it. She climbs like a rocket, man. Climbs like a rocket. Alright, so we're almost there. So at 18,000 feet, I'm going to switch this back to the standard barometric pressure, 29902. We're going to make sure, actually we can turn our landing lights off now. We could do that at 10,000 feet. Taxi lights come off. Other than that, everything else, we can turn our tail lights on. Why not? And our wing lights. Make it pretty. And there's 18,000. Barometric pressure set back to 29902, as we can see down here. And it does register on the standby as well. So from here, guys, it's just letting the aircraft complete its climb up to 42,000 feet. So I will catch you as we get to cruise and start talking about planning for the descent. I'll catch you guys in a few, unless something goes awry, in which case I will let you know. Now, something I forgot to mention, you guys, as we get a bit higher, we do need to change our speed from indicated to Mach. Okay, so we're going to come up here and we're going to switch this over to manual, by the way. We don't want to be in FMS, we want to be in manual. So we're just going to left click that, depress this. It's going to change our target from indicated airspeed to Mach, as you can see here. And we want to increase our speed to approximately Mach 0.78 for the remainder of our climb. And we normally do this about 20,000 feet. So a little late on that one. And then when we get up to our cruise, we'll be looking for a cruise at approximately Mach 0.82. You can't always reach that, but you want to get as close as you can without overspeeding the aircraft. All right, so I'll catch you guys when we get up to the cruise altitude. All right, you guys, so we are finally up at cruise altitude. So from this point, we're going to take our speed and kick that up, as I said, to about Mach 0.82. We're going to see if we can get up there. You want to watch it pretty close because you can see how close we are to that red tape. Red tape is overspeed. So we'll see how it goes. Now, I've seen Mach 0.84. I've seen people say Mach 0.85. Mach 0.82 for the sim purposes seems to be the best that I've been able to achieve without overspeeding. But we'll see how it goes today. We're accelerating without any issue there. Now, while we're waiting for that, we're going to also set up our top of descent on the MFD here using Working Title's beautiful VNAV calculations. It's not true VNAV, but at least gives us a top of descent and gives us some guidance on how to descend the aircraft. So to do so, we're going to come back into our flight plan here. We're going to go to VNAV. We're going to go to VNAV enabled. Now we're going to go back to the home position here. We got a couple steps here that we're going to be doing. Again, I must keep saying this because people are always like, where do you get this information from? All the information that I'm about to put in is very, very detailed in the tutorial guide that I have created for the Cessna Citation Longitude. That can be found on my Patreon, along with all of my other guides. So, what we're going to do first is we're going to find our lowest location waypoint here that I want. And that is basically the last requirement is... Where are you? Where are you? Oh, snap, it not in here. Hasty pink. It should have been a part of the Muscle 3 approach. Or, interesting. So there's everything but... So only one waypoint I'm missing. What was that? No, back. Let's go back in procedures for a second. I just want to double check something. That's right. That is right as well. Huh. We have a waypoint that's missing is why I'm sort of throwing myself off here, but that's alright. We'll use the one right above it. It's not too critical. So, we're going to use Lakeland. And we want, not that window, we want our altitude window. And we need to be above 8,000 feet. So I'm going to set this for 8,000 feet. And I'm getting this simply from the star chart for Minneapolis. So you can find all this information just by looking at the Navigraph charts. So Lakeland requires us to be above 8,000 feet, so we're going to press enter. Now this is going to create a target list of all of the waypoints preceding the target waypoint that we've entered. We need to make sure that none of these altitudes are going to break an altitude restriction. For example, let me take a look here. And again, I'm just looking at the guide. Bakes, we need to be above 12,000 feet, so we're at 13.4 here. That's perfectly fine. Let me come back up a couple pages. I had the full star up here. Muscle, we need to be above 17,000. We're at 19.8. We're good there. German, we need to be above flight level 220. We're good there. And finally, Camaro, we need to be above flight level 240, and we are way above 240 at that point. So, looking good. Looking real good. Okay, so actually we didn't have... This is actually really easy now. I don't know if things got updated since my previous one, but I'm not going to complain about it, that's for sure. This was nice and easy. So all we have to do here, come back to our home page, and if we just pick our head up here, you can see it right there just before idiom. You can see the D right there. There's actually a T and an O in front of it indicating top of descent. So you can see we are a ways out. We're about probably 700 miles away yet. But as we get closer, we'll zoom in and you guys get to see that top of descent more clearly. Now let's see how we're doing on our speed. That was a lot easier. That's nice. Alright, and Mach 0.82, we did achieve that. We can actually try to see if we can get a little faster. Let's see if we can get Mach 0.83 out of that. This aircraft is so freaking fast, man. I think I'm going to get an overspeed warning. Right on the cusp, man. 832 has been achieved. Alright, we'll see how that goes. Well, I will catch you guys in about an hour or so, where we'll be looking at the top of descent. And the descent is just as easy as the climb out was. So I'll catch you guys soon. Alright, friends, so as you can see here, we're about 90 miles now away from our top of descent. There's that TOD I was telling you about, nice and clear, easily visible. So we got our top of descent about 90 miles away, and then the game's really going to start to get interesting once again, get back into the fun stuff. It's been total flight time. We've been looking at about an hour and 40 minutes so far, not too shabby. So I will catch you guys in just a few minutes here, shouldn't be much longer now. Now, as we get closer here, I did want to show you guys something else. You can go to Flight Plan, go to VNav. From here, we can see time to top of descent is going to be 10 minutes. So this will change based on wind and direction. You can see the rest of our information. We're going to be looking at a vertical speed. Initially, the descent will be looking at a vertical speed of 2,500 feet per minute to achieve a 3-degree glide slope, or angle of descent, I should say. And again, we should see that in about 9 minutes, 40 seconds or so. So stay tuned with me, guys. We're just about ready to get started. Our first step here is about 1 minute till top of descent. We'll get an alert here that says 1 minute till top of descent, at which point we'll slow the aircraft down to about Mach 0.80. And then once we achieve that speed, we will begin our descent down to 7,000 feet. The descent will be rather rapid at first, but as we continue downwards, we'll hit about 25, 28,000 feet, somewhere in that area. We'll change back from Mach to indicated airspeed and continue our descent down at about 290 knots, and then making sure we are down to 280 knots by our restriction. One of our waypoints, I'll have to go back and double check. I believe it is muscle requires us to be at 20 or 280 knots, but I'll have to go back and double check, which we'll do in just a minute. So stay with me, guys, because it's going to get busy here in just a minute. And let the games begin. It is time. So coming up top, reducing our speed down to Mach 0.80. We want to do that before we reach our descent point. That way the aircraft's already at our descent speed by the time we reach our point of descent. So we're looking at 1 minute 19 seconds yet. Speed achieved. Got 1 minute down here on the old ticker. And there's our alert, top of descent within 1 minute. Now as we get that information, we get quite a bit of different pieces here. This is our glide slope. This is going to show us that whether we are above or at our altitude that we should be at based on our location. Okay, this is our target descent rate. We're going to want to make sure that we're descending in line with this purple target here. Okay, and we're going to want our descent or our altitude target, it should be in line with our current altitude. And you guys will see all this in action here in just a minute. So we're going to set up our initial descent rate. What are we looking for today? Let's come down here. 20 seconds, looking at 2,400 feet. It's about 2,400. All right, so coming up top. Vertical speed. Selecting the vertical speed bug. And down we go. Oh, probably should set our altitude target first. Taking that all the way down. Right now we're going to 8,000 was our target. Okay, now let's try this again. vertical speed bug, and vertical speed mode. And let's bring her down. So you can see I'm going to descend with the caret. This is our actual descent rate, and this is our target descent rate. Now, the problem is we're way above the altitude that we should be at this point because it took me so long to start the descent. So we're going to descend a little faster than what it wants us to at first. And we're going to wait for this caret to catch back up. And basically that will mean that we're back on the glide slope that we need to be on. You can see it here with our flight path indicator. So here it comes. It's coming up. It's coming up. It's coming up. Comes out of the sky almost as fast as she gets into it. 39,000 feet. Alright, so we're approaching our glide slope here. Alright, so now I'm going to start reducing the descent rate. Right about there. And it'll fluctuate a little bit. It's not perfect, but you can get it pretty darn close. I may have to adjust it a couple more times here and there, especially as speed changes, wind changes, etc. But for the most part, it'll be right in this region, and this is what you're looking for. Our descent rate is on target. Our current altitude's on target with where the computer thinks we should be. And we're descending down to our 8,000 feet. So it's just a matter of letting her ride out at this point. So next stop here is, like I said, about 28,000 feet-ish. We'll be changing out of indicated air, or Mach back to indicated airspeed. Now, a good indicator of when you're going to need to do that is you'll see that your overspeed tape gets closer and closer to your speed indicator. Indicated airspeed will get closer to overspeed the lower we get if you stay in Mach. So you need to, once you start seeing that red tape get really close to what you're indicating, that's a good indicator that it's time to switch out of Mach and back into indicated airspeed and start slowing the aircraft down. And then as far as our restriction goes, I believe we have a restriction of 280 knots at German. Yes, so it was just before Muscle. We need to make sure that we are at, let me double check that one more time. And again, all of these charts in the guide. So screenshots of everything that I'm telling you guys here is in the guide at your dispose. Easy reference. But so far I'm not having any issue with the aircraft. Here we go. Yeah, it's German. 280 knots. So we'll make sure that we're down to 280 by the time we get there. Let's take a look and see where we're at, actually. So let's see here. German is our target. It's our next waypoint. So at this point, you can see we're actually indicating 280. And there's 33,000 on the target here. So give it another couple minutes here and we'll be changing over to indicated. So I'll catch you guys in just a few. Alright, so now we're coming down at 29,000 feet. We can see now we're starting to increase speed. That's what I was saying. As we get lower and lower, our indicator is going to get faster and faster. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and switch us out of indicated and slow the aircraft down to 280 knots as we are expected to be at by German. Let's just get her down to that speed restriction. Now at this point, you may get some variance on your descent rate, so you're going to want to watch that a little bit. Like it looks like we need to reduce our descent rate just a bit. Looking good. Alright, and then the next hop will be about 250 knots by 10,000 is the next speed restriction. Everything else is looking good here. No issues that I can foresee on our approach. It's a matter of continuing our descent down to altitude, and at transition altitude we'll switch over to the current barometric pressure. But been a really, knock on wood, been a really smooth flight so far. Haven't had any issues other than yours truly not paying attention to turning the batteries on at the start. I still can't believe I did that. And then obviously the hiatus at takeoff, but again that was my fault trying to explain too much and I let my mind get ahead of my actions. So anyway, easy stuff, guys. As far as I can tell, she's working gorgeously. So gorgeously? Would that be a word? I mean, if beautifully is a word, is gorgeously a word? Huh. These are the things you think about. Anyway, I'll catch you guys in a few. Alright, so we are setting our barometric pressure to 2985. That's going to be our ground altitude. You can see that actually put us a little bit below the glide slope. So at this point, we want to reduce our descent rate. We're also going to start slowing our speed down. Let's take her down to 260 knots. Probably did that a little early. Probably didn't need to slow down just yet, but keep things easy for your viewing. Next thing we can do is we can come down and take a look at speed bugs. We're going to set our approach speed. First, I need to know what our weight is. Total aircraft weight right now is 29,572 pounds, which puts us at an approach speed of 128 knots. And a final reference speed of 116 knots. Turn our speed bugs on. And we got our speed bugs ready to go for landing. And again, how I got those numbers included in the guide. All of my tutorial guides can be found on Patreon to level tier 2 subscribers. Next, let's get our ILS frequencies in. Make sure those are set. And 11050. Nope, we want 11030. Alright, good. It is right. Set that as the active. Nav 1's good to go. So we have our ILS set. I think at this point we're just sort of hanging tight for a minute. Alright, so we are now en route to the final approach fix, which is hasty. So we got a couple things we need to do here. First, we're going to set our target altitude down to 7,000 feet. We need to make sure that we are at 7,000 by hasty. And I think I told you guys that we had to be at 8,000 by Lakeland. I can't remember now. We needed to be above it. So I didn't want you guys to think that we missed or breached our altitude. We just needed to be above 8,000. Now by hasty, we need to be at 7,000 in order to be on the initial fix for the glide slope. Alright, and also at this point now, we need to start slowing the aircraft down. We're going to get her down below 230 knots. We need to be at 230 knots by the time we reach hasty. Now here's how this all works. Anything below 250 knots, we're going to be looking for flaps 1. So there's 250, there's flaps 1 coming down. And then below 230 knots, we'll be looking for flaps 2. And then below 180 knots, we'll be looking for flaps 3 gear down. Such a weird approach angle in it. An odd turn. But it does also give us time to descend, so it works out. Now I'm actually going to go ahead. Well, it's 9,000 feet, 2,000. Maybe I won't. I was going to say I was going to set our altitude down to our missed approach altitude, which is going to be 2,800 feet. But I think we'll wait, because I think we're going to hit 7,000 before we get to hasty. See what I did there? Don't get too hasty. I cracked myself up. I'm sorry. I don't get out much anymore. All right, flight directors are on. Everything, now we're just doing a double checks. We're below 10,000. Lights come back on. Good. Good. All right, beautiful. Looking great so far, guys. We're looking great. There's 8,000. And we're going to hit 7,000 right on time. Let's zoom that in a bit more. There's the initial fix right there. Once we start making the final turn, we'll go ahead and set for ILS. Alright, so almost there. And there's 7,000, locking into the box there. Altitude hold has now been re-engaged. So at this point we can set our target altitude. So let's get that down. We said 2,500 is what we're going to be looking for. And let's see here. There we go. Alright, and now that we have turned on to the initial fix, we can come down here and we should see indication of the ILS being broadcasted, but we may not be picking that up just yet. Oh, nope, there it is right there. Nav1 IMSP. So now we can come over here to our nav source and change it to VOR1, and we can lock up the localizer. And we're going to slow the aircraft down 210 knots. And flaps 2 coming down. Now, if you don't have a mod installed, I have a mod that I use, the improvement mod, linked in the description below. If you don't have that improvement mod installed, once you engage flaps 2, if you don't have the gear down, you'll get an audible warning. So just keep that in mind. Glide slope has been acquired. Let's go ahead and go into the approach mode. Approach mode active, the aircraft begins its descent, and we're on our way in. And we can see here the glide slope's right on point, right where we need to be. Not sure what's going on with our localizer yet. It's kind of making me a little nervous, but we'll watch it, and if need be, we'll take it away from the aircraft. There's our airport out in front. So far, no real reason for concern. Speed 190 knots now. Final moments are always the most fun for me. Looks like we got a pretty good crosswind on this one. Not sure why our wind isn't displaying. Oh, there it is. It's down there. Almost head on. Alright, cool. Alright, now let's take her down. So we're going to come all the way down to our reference speed, 128 knots. Waiting to come below 180. Close enough, 180 knots, landing gear coming down. Full flaps. . Looking gorgeous. Looking gorgeous. And I'll catch you guys in just a couple minutes when we get closer to the approach. We're just about there. Now, the last step we do want to put is our minimums. We're just going to use 200 feet radar altimeter. You can see that should have been set up here. Let me make sure that triggered right. Oh, there we go. And we want radar in this case. And there they are right there. There's our minimums. Little bit above approach speed, but that's okay. Pull that back just a hair or two. Let's arm our ground spoilers. Make sure that they're in the norm position. At about 500 feet, radar altimeter will be disengaging the autopilot. Now, funny enough, there used to be a bug at this airport, ironically enough. About halfway down the runway when I would land the Longitude, something would happen about halfway that would flip the right wheel. Literally just kick us right over onto our back. So, hopefully that's been resolved. Alright, close enough. Autopilot disengage. Auto throttle disengage. Thank you. My keybind for the auto throttle wasn't working. That almost caused a problem. Alright, let me get back on track here. I'm just going to power up a little bit, clear those trees. Alright, now throttle's coming back. There's that 116 knots for final reference. Gentle flare. She doesn't have much of a flare. Easy. Just let her come on down. And there she goes. Normally I'd open up the reversers, but apparently that keybind is broken too. Alright, flaps coming up. Easy off the runway. Make sure we completely clear the active. Better to take up a taxiway than a runway. Alright, and let's come upstairs for a second. Landing lights off, pulse lights off, taxi lights on. Everything else can remain on as desired. And from here, you would taxi to the gate and shut it down. Guys, my PDF tutorial guide, I've mentioned it a lot in this. It has all of the information plus so much more than what I displayed here in the video today. It also goes through complete cold and dark startup to the complete cold and dark shutdown at this very airport. Basically the same flight we just took, just a ton more information. So if you guys are interested, please consider joining me on Patreon, level tier 2 and above. It helps me out a ton as a support for the channel. It really does make it possible for me to purchase the aircraft that I do all these reviews on, all these things that you guys enjoy. So it really does make a difference, and I really do appreciate the support that you guys give me. It makes all the difference in the world for us. Anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this. The Longitude, as far as I can tell, is flying absolutely perfect. So let me know if you guys have any problems with it, and I'll be happy to help in any way that I can. As always, guys, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, folks.